Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'll be showing you how to draft a dartless foundation for a stretch fabric. So today we're going to be working with just our back bodice piece and bodice pattern, and the reason is because our back bodice is 1/4 of an inch smaller than the front, which means we're going to be taking off about 1 inch using the back pattern. So first of all, I'm going to trace around my neckline, my center back, and my waist, and along my shoulder line. Then I'm going to raise my shoulder tip by 1/2 an inch, and I'm going to drag my pattern till it touches that 1/2 an inch, making sure it aligns with the center back. And I'm going to draw in my side seam and also 1/2 of my armhole curve. Now my pattern has a 1 inch dart at the waistline, so I've removed the 1 inch dart at the side seam. So once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and make my lines bold and straighten my line at the shoulder to my 1/2 an inch point. Then at the shoulder tip, I'm going to place down my shoulder measurement, which mine is about 4.5 inches, and I'm going to use my curve ruler to draw in my armhole curve. Once that's done, placing my pattern on my traced bodies, you'll see that my side seam has been raised by 1/2 an inch and my shoulder has also been raised. Then I'm going to extend my center back line to continue with my dress pattern. So from my waistline, I'm measuring downwards by 10 inches, which is the distance from my waist to my hip. And I'm going to square that line towards the side. And I'm also going to square a line at my bust area. And then I'm going to divide my hip measurement by 4, and I'm going to place 1/4 of that measurement on my hip line. And I'm going to connect that point to the waistline. Now working with our back pattern, the back pattern is smaller than the front bodies by 1 inch, by 1/4 of an inch, sorry. So my original waist measures at about 31 inches. So if I take the measurement I have now at my waistline, it's 30 inches and it measures 1 inch smaller than my original waist. Same thing for my bust measurement, it measures 1 inch smaller than my original bust. And for the hip, it's 1/4 of my hip measurement, so I'm going to take out a little from the hip as well. Now it depends on how stretchy your fabric is. You might discover that after you've sewn it using this pattern, you still have to go in and do a few adjustments. So on my pattern, I'm going to go inwards at the waist by 1/2 an inch, at the bust line by 1/4 of an inch, and at the hip line by 1 inch, and I'm going to connect those points together. So now if I take my waist measurement, it's going to be about 29 inches, so it's about 3 inches smaller than my original waist, and my hip is also about 4 inches smaller than my original hip. Now this pattern works only with stretchy fabrics, just bear that in mind. Now I'm going to place down the length of my dress. Mine is about 38.5 inches, and I'm just extending my center back line, which is also my center front line, because this draft is going to be used for both the front and the back of our dress. So now at my hip line, my hip measures at about 10 inches, so I'm going to subtract 2 inches from that 10 inches, which is 8 inches, and that will be my hip measurement. Also, it depends on how tight you want it. So I realized 8 inches was a little too big for what the look I was going for. So I decided to reduce it by 1 inch. So instead of 8 inches, I'm going to work with 7 inches, and I'm going to connect that point to my hip. So once that's done, I'm just going ahead to check my the circumference of what my final dress would be. So at my hem I have 29 inches, my hip I have 38 inches, for my waist I have 29 inches, and for my bust I have about 34 inches. So once that's done, I'm going ahead to erase the lines I won't be needing. And like I said, we're going to be using this pattern also for the front. So the only difference between the back and the front is the front neckline will be dropped by a few inches. So here I'm just squaring out my shoulder tip towards the front of my paper, and I'm marking downwards from that shoulder tip 3 inches. You can mark 3.5 depending on how low you want the neckline to be, and I'm going to connect that 3 inches with my shoulder tip. Now you can go ahead and trace out your pattern, trace the lower neck for the front and the higher neck for the back. I've gone ahead and traced out my front pattern, and we're going to make a little adjustment at the armhole of our front. So I'm going inwards just 1/3 of my armhole curve by 1/8 of an inch, and I'm going to redraw my armhole curve from that 1/8 of an inch to the side seam and also to the shoulder. And once that's done, that's all the adjustment we need to do for our front pattern. Once that's done, we're going to move ahead to work on our sleeve. Now I have a sleeve pattern that is for bust 38. So I'm going to fold my pattern along the grain line, the center line, and I'm going to fold it in half and place it on the edge of a folded paper. Now you're going to take your paper and fold it in two. Here I'm not working with a folded paper, so I'm going to place that on the edge. But you should place your pattern on the folded edge of your paper. And once you've done that, you can go ahead and trace the outline of your sleeve pattern from the sleeve cap, the side seam, and also the hem of your sleeve. Then I'm just going ahead to straighten my lines, and at my sleeve I'm going upwards by 1/2 inch. Remember, for the bodies of our dress we went up by 1/2 inch at the side seam, so I'm repeating the same thing for my sleeve. Go up by 1/2 inch and connect that curve to my sleeve cap, and at the hem of the sleeve I'm going to place down the hem of around my wrist measurement. So my wrist measures at about 7 inches. I'm going to divide that by 2 and place 1/2 of that measurement on my sleeve. And at the side seam of the sleeve cap I went inwards by 1/2 inch and I connected those points together. And I'm also going to straighten my hemline, my side seam line towards the midpoint of my sleeve. Then I'm going to go ahead and erase the lines I don't need. Now you can go ahead and check your bicep line to make sure that it matches with what you take for your measurement. If it's too small, you can go outwards by how much you need, and if it's too big, you can still reduce it. Here I'm just going ahead to place my back notch. Now if you're working with a folded paper, you can go ahead and unfold your paper to get your front retrace your front sleeve. So mine is just going to be one piece, so I've gone ahead and placed my back notch, and like I did for the front, at the sleeve cap I'm going inwards at 1/8 of an inch, and I'm going to deepen my curve there. So that curve line will stand for my front part of the sleeve. Here I'm just going ahead to mark my notch so it aligns with my sleeve. So I have 2.5 for my back, and then 3/8 of an inch away from that for my two notches at the back, and then 2.5 for my one front notch. So here I'm just going ahead to check my armhole measurement for both the front and the back, making sure it corresponds with my sleeve. Now your sleeve cap should be about 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 inch larger than your armhole measurement. This is because you're going to be doing a little bit of easing along your sleeve cap. Now if you take this measurement and yours doesn't correspond, if you need to increase, like I said, increase, and if you need to reduce some, you can go ahead and reduce it just like I said. But when you're increasing and reducing, make sure you do that on your bicep line. So mine is a little bit big, so I'm just trying to figure out how much I need to reduce my sleeve cap by. So once I've determined how much I need to reduce, I'm going to connect my new point to my wrist, and then I'm going to redraw my notch at the armhole, or replace my notch at the armhole. So it's still going to be 2.5 inches and 3/8 of an inch from there for the back, and the front will still be at 2.5 inches. So once that's done, you can go ahead and add your seam allowances to your pattern, and you can make whatever style you want out of it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. See you in the next one.